The 2023 metal detecting season is over, and it was a great year for finds. I got the opportunity to detect a ton of cool locations thanks to viewers contacting me and offering their property for me to search. If you live anywhere in the Turku area and have some property that I can metal detect, I'm offering access to my fleet of high-end metal detectors as well as a free lesson in exchange. And as you will see in this video, some of my viewers have found some awesome stuff. By the way, I document all of my interesting finds in short video format, so make sure to go check out my YouTube shorts, which I will link in the description below. You might want to check them out first because this list will obviously have some spoilers and will feature the best of the best finds, but there are still tons of very interesting ones that I couldn't include in this list. So here they are, my top 25 metal detecting finds of 2023. Number 25. I really like finding old relics more than anything else, and this is a cool example of one. This is some sort of copper adornment, possibly for a chest or a trunk of some sort. It could also possibly be a decoration for a saddle. It features two angels carrying a crown with a cross on top. While it neither has historic nor monetary value, I love finding anything unique, especially relics with artistic value that I will likely never find again. Number 24. I don't usually include many of the silver coins on my top finds list, but this one deserves to be on the list because it was the first silver that I found with the Minelab Manticore that I was able to make a confident silver call before I dug it. This is a Russian 5 kopeck coin from 1850. Now there's no way to know for certain when a silver coin is under the quill, but here's a tip to identify them. Over time you want to develop a consistent swing speed to use for target analysis. When sweeping over a target at this known speed and factoring in your recovery speed, listen to the length of the tone and compare it to the target ID. The length of the tone when swung over at a consistent speed will help indicate the size of the object. A short tone with a suspiciously high target ID is characteristic of a thinner silver or copper coin. Aluminum pieces that produce similar target IDs to these silver coins and copper coins tend to be larger objects and thus produce longer tones, since target ID has a loose correlation to target size. So when trying to cherry pick silver, listen for short signals that produce suspiciously high target IDs in relation to their tone length. Number 23. Speaking of cool relics, this one is a period Napoleon Bonaparte pipe tamper. While it's missing, Napoleon would typically sit on top of a flat surface that people would use to cover and tamper the flame of their tobacco pipe. This piece is from Napoleon's time, and he was particularly savvy at self-promotion and selling his image, and this piece is a great example of just such a thing. Apparently there was a fan of Napoleon somewhere here in Finland. Number 22. This next silver coin isn't particularly valuable, it's not particularly rare, and not that old, but it's a cornerstone of the Finnish currency and it has eluded me for some time. This is a silver Finnish 1 marka coin from 1866. I believe it took me some time to find this coin because I don't typically search in the right locations to find more modern silver coins like this, but this one happened to be mixed in with some much older stuff. This particular coin has some amazing detail and I'm very happy to have finally crossed this one off the bucket list. Number 21. This next find is from a Finnish military uniform. Though at the time Finland was under control of the Imperial Russian Empire. Still they had Finnish-specific battalions for specific cities here in Finland. This button is from the 1850s and is from the uniform of the 20th Finnish Battalion that was stationed in Åland. They were fighting in the Åland War, which was primarily a naval conflict between the British and French Navy against the Grand Duchy of Finland. This conflict was part of the Crimean Wars between Russia and the alliance between the French and the British. I love finding old military buttons. Number 20. This next find is the best example of this coin I have ever found. The amount of detail and luster left on this coin is almost baffling considering it is made of copper and it was underground for such a long time. This is a huge Russian 2 kopeck coin from 1798. It was minted under the Emperor Paul I in the Ekaterinburg Mint. I doubt I will ever find a better example of this coin, and this one's going straight in the display case. Number 19. This next silver coin is barely 100 years old and not particularly valuable, but is a foreign coin from Germany. This is a silver German 1/2 mark from 1906. Unlike Russian and Swedish money, it was never official currency here. I love finding foreign coins because of how few there must be in the ground here. While not rare in the grand scheme of things, I will likely never find this coin ever again here in Finland. More than anything, I love finding something that I've never found before. Number 18. Speaking of the Crimean War, this next find is a Russian Imperial Navy button from the Åland Wars of 1850. This is from a specifically Russian battalion as Russian forces were stationed here and occupied the land. I have found a few of these over the years, but these are such spectacularly detailed and impressive buttons, I can't help but get excited every time I find one. Number 17. This next find thoroughly confused me. It rang up like silver and initially looked like silver, but it had a weird hexagon shape. Things got even more confusing when I realized it said pennia on it, which is Finnish, but I know for a fact Finland never made any hexagon-shaped coins. Upon cleaning it up, I discovered it was a Turku tram token from anywhere between the late 1800s to early 1900s, possibly when the tram was still a horse-drawn carriage. That explains why it is denominated in Finnish currency. Also, this token has a hole punched in it, indicating somebody wore this as a pendant at some point, or possibly nailed it to the wall of a barn. This is a great piece of local history, and I've never seen anybody else find one of these before. I love items that come with some mystery. Number 16. This next find has some cool history to it. This is some sort of official's uniform button from 1890 featuring the coat of arms of the joint province of Turku, Pori, and Åland. Later Åland would split off and form its own province after Finland gained its independence from Russia. I've no clue exactly what sort of person might have had this on their uniform, but it's awesome when you can date a piece exactly using historical clues. Number 15. This next find is another example of a very old copper coin in spectacular condition, except this one is even older. This is a Swedish 1/6 ore from 1666. Considering how long this has been in the ground, the level of detail is absolutely mesmerizing, and it is by far the best example of this coin I have ever found. Oftentimes these coins are so corroded they can be nearly blank or totally blank. Not to mention, I found this coin in somebody's backyard. Seriously, I've found some amazing stuff in people's backyards. Number 14. This next relic I found in a freshly plowed farm field, and considering the ground is regularly turned, this find has gotten really lucky to be fully intact. This is a book clasp probably anywhere from the 1500s to the 1700s. This piece would attach to a leather strap that could then be hooked to keep the book closed. These would regularly fall off of Bibles and often featured religious imagery of angels and such. But in regard to book clasps, stay tuned because later in this list you will see something truly spectacular. Number 13. This next one is actually a trio of finds of the same coin, but each is a different variant. These are Russian Peter the Great 1 kopeck coins from the 1700s, and each is a different variant from a different mint. Prior to this season, I had never found one of these Russian coppers because their minting predates the Russian occupation of this location, so their circulation here must have been extremely limited. But somehow I found 3 of them at 3 different locations and at 3 different times of the year. There's a lot of randomness in metal detecting, especially in the things you find, and even in the things you don't find. I've found some very rare finds, sometimes multiples of them, but even I have some gaps in my finds that include much more common stuff. It goes to show how much randomness is involved in the hobby, and how much where you search determines what you will find. Number 12. This next find is what is known as a clippy. Basically, it is a square coin cut from a sheet of metal and stamped. Usually square coins are only minted in wartime because they are easier to produce in mass quantities. This is a Swedish 1/2 ore from 1626. These were minted and given to Swedish soldiers whom hated receiving them for payment because the amount of copper didn't match their denominated value, so people didn't like to accept them in trade, which made them very difficult to spend. There's some debate as to whether this constitutes the first money minted in Finland. It isn't clear if they were minted here in Finland and given to the soldiers here, or if they are minted in Sweden and then brought here and distributed. Either way, many consider this to be Finland's very first coin. Number 11. This next find fooled me at first. Initially, I thought I was holding a silver coin, especially because it had the characteristic wreath of a 1 marka silver coin. But upon cleaning it up, I realized it was only silver plated and had classic firefighter iconography on it. It turns out this is a German firefighter's medallion given to people who served on the volunteer firefighting brigade. Back in the day, firefighting was a voluntary effort performed by the local townspeople themselves. This was likely a very important medallion to somebody, and from what I can gather through research, this was not easily earned. Somebody very likely risked their life multiple times helping their fellow townspeople to earn this medallion. Finland's history of firefighting followed in the German tradition, which explains the German on this medallion. Now, before I share the top 10, I would like to feature people who have appeared on my channel and the cool things that they have found. Up first is a nice piece of silver that my wife correctly called. I may have been swinging the detector, but I gave her the credit because she correctly identified this as being potentially a piece of silver before we dug it. Its high tone in relation to its tone length revealed the possibility of something good, and my wife correctly picked up on it and called it. This ended up being a silver graduation ring with a name etched on it. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to find the original owner, and probably never will. But if you suspect this could be yours, do contact me and tell me what you believe is engraved on the inside. Up next is a find by my friend Jan. Jan has developed a reputation as being the one who finds the rings, and this is an example of one of them. This is an old silver Russian ring, unstamped but definitely from the 1800s. He also found some silver coins and some other cool stuff that day as well. Another friend of mine who followers on my channel are likely familiar with is Henry, also sometimes referred to as Coin God Henry by a few viewers. Well, here he is delivering on his moniker. This is a Johann III silver coin from the 1500s. The level of detail is spectacular, and the fact that it is intact is extra lucky considering it was found in a plowed farm field. This next find was found by a new friend of mine, Ville. This was his first day ever metal detecting, and he managed to pull one of the coolest finds featured on my channel. This is a Viking coin. Specifically, it is a 1 denier minted in 995 by the Holy Roman Empire in Germany. Archaeologists consider coins from this period to have been brought back to Finland from Viking raids. Not bad for his first time metal detecting. One final special mention before the top 10. This is a medieval bronze rooster that would adorn the top of a tap of barrel of beer. I didn't catch it on video because at the time it was so covered in mud I couldn't tell what it was. It just seemed like a lump of lead at the time. But I tend to keep all of my objects until I can absolutely determine that they're garbage, and this find is exactly the reason why. I'm very glad I kept this and investigated it further. Number 10. This next find produced quite the tone on my metal detector. It turned out to be a silver pocket watch with a copper face. The patina on the silver is mesmerizing. It is probably from anywhere between the early 1800s and the early 1900s. Me and my friend Henry tried to open the backing to see if we could find a date stamp or an inscription, but we had no luck. It was sealed totally shut. In the right light, you can see the old hands of the watch that have corroded and deposited onto the face. I have found many pieces of pocket watches over the year, but this is the most complete example I've ever found. Number 9. This coin is also a copper clippy. This is a Swedish 1 ore from 1626. These clippies come in a variety of shapes and denominations across a 3-year span from 1624 to 1627. This particular size and denomination was the only one remaining that I hadn't found before, also for some reason among the more rare varieties. I found this using a recovery speed of 1 on the Manticore by going over a patch of land that produced some good coin finds the day prior. It was so deep that it barely made a squeak on the machine about half the time when swung over it. But I'm glad I took a chance on the signal. Number 8. This next silver coin is not only a great find, but it is especially memorable because my friend Henry was present and I managed to correctly call that this was a silver coin before I dug it. This is a Swedish 1/24th riksdaler from 1779. This one was minted under King Gustav III. These thin silver coins are a great example of a short signal with a suspiciously high tone. Number 7. This next find isn't particularly old, but it is gold. I don't typically go after modern jewelry, and to get those, you typically have to be in the right locations like modern parks, beaches, and whatnot. So it's really a nice surprise to find some modern gold mixed in with primarily old artifacts. Older gold is pretty rare here too because historically speaking, this region has been very poor. Gold is gold, so that's why it's on the top 10. Number 6. Speaking of monetary value, this next find is a simple Finnish 25 penny coin from 1871, but this one is highly desirable, it's a low mintage year, and it's in fantastic shape. I've seen examples in much worse condition sell for a few €100, so this one has the potential to be really valuable. I don't ever sell any of my finds, so I don't typically care about the market value of an item, but this coin has very interesting numismatic value as well. Number 5. This next copper coin is among the rarest, if not the rarest, of the copper coins that can be found in this region. I have found thousands of old coins from this region, and this is the only example I've ever seen of this coin. I've never seen anybody else dig one. This is a Swedish 1/2 ore from 1627, minted under King Gustav Adolf II. In 1632, the price of copper spiked, and many of these coins were melted down for their scrap value. So that explains why so few exist. The amount of copper in them outweighed their denominated value. I may never find another one of these copper coins again. Number 4. This next find is a silver clippy from the year 1518. It's an 18 penny coin ostensibly minted in Denmark under the King Christian II. However, his geopolitical rival at the time, King Gustav Vasa, hatched a plan to wage economic warfare upon them. He minted counterfeit 18 penny coins with significantly reduced silver content and put them into circulation in an attempt to harm confidence in the currency. This proved to be a surprisingly effective strategy. This coin came in a number of variants, and given this particular variant and the fact it was found in Finland strongly suggests this could be one of those period counterfeit coins. Unfortunately, the only way to know for sure would be to melt the coin and analyze the ratio of metals in it, thus destroying the coin. Number 3. This next find dates back to medieval times. This is what is called a seal matrix. There is a relief carved into the flat side of this object that is used to stamp an image into hot wax. Unfortunately, corrosion prevents me from fully making out the image, and archaeological finds like this should not be cleaned, and instead handed over to Museo Verasto, the local museum system, for professional study and cleaning. Though I do wonder what image is hiding beneath the corrosion layer. If I ever find out, I will let you folks know. Number 2. If you have ever watched my videos, you know I love finding keys. Well, this one is the mother of all key finds. It may not look like it at first glance, but this is a Viking Age key. In the early days of locks, there were a variety of alternative mechanisms in circulation. This was one of those designs that ultimately lost to superior mechanisms. You would actually insert the side with the holes into the lock. Lifting up would then squeeze some flared pins, allowing the device to unlatch. One of the reasons I like keys so much is that it always leaves my mind wondering what the key went to. My imagination simply goes wild thinking what this Viking era person would have kept locked up with this key. Number 1. Finally, my top find of the year and maybe of all time. This find is very likely a piece of Finnish national history and has a really cool story of discovery behind it. This artifact is a book clasp. Important books were often decorated with elaborate metal adornments. When I first dug up this book clasp, I knew it was a great find, but I hadn't quite realized its true historical value. Some weeks after discovering it, I was in Nagu visiting an old church. Inside of this church was one of the first Bibles translated into Finnish from 1642. I was shocked to see it was adorned with exactly the same clasp I had just recently found. Only 750 copies of this first print of the Finnish Bible were ever made and distributed in Finland. I sent a report to Museovirasto, the local museum system, and they confirmed that these clasps were used on the first Finnish Bibles. They also stated that a few other important books at the time would have been adorned with this same clasp, such as important city records. So it's impossible to know for certain what it was attached to, but one thing is for certain. This was adorned on a book of historical significance, and the journey of discovery surrounding this object will be one that I remember for a long time. Thank you for watching and sticking around this long. I hope the 2024 season is just as fruitful.